If you haven't already done so, in the chat feature, you have to scroll up to the top. There's the sign-in sheet for you to fill out so we know you are here. Even if you are a guest, not a student of LSUA, a family member, we would like for you to let us know you're here. Before we get started, this session will also be recorded. I just saw the red light show up, so we are running on that. This is session 2. In this session, we will have 4 students. And it is, again, presentations from the psychology department. I will introduce each presenter and read the title of their presentation. For judges, I will give you the participant ID. While I'm introducing you, please go ahead and share your screen so you are able to go. You will have 7 minutes to present, and then there will be 5 minutes for questions. I will give you a 1-minute warning. I will show you this and say it. I've already said the judges, I'll be giving you participant ID number. Everyone present other than the presenters will be muted during the presentation. For your questions for the presentation, please put those in the chat section, and Teresa or I will read those to the presenter. First presenter will be Brittany Thomas. Presentation topic, procrastination station. How being an early bird or night owl impacts procrastination. Brittany, we are ready when you are.
I was trying to figure out how to unmute it. Okay. Hello. I'm Brittany Thomas, and my study is on how being an early bird or night owl impacts procrastination. Our research question is, are night owls or early birds prone to procrastination? The early bird catches the worm. The early bird catches the worm is an English proverb written by John Ray in the 1600s. And the phrase is widely used when referring to being punctual and avoiding procrastination. And the goal of my study is to identify the contrast between being an early bird or night owl regarding procrastination. In my definition of terms, an early bird is simply somebody who wakes up early, goes to bed early, or someone who feels most productive in the morning. And a night owl is someone who goes to bed late, wakes up late, and who feels most productive in the evening hours. And chronotype in my study is a person's natural inclination about the times of day when they prefer to sleep or when they are most alert or energetic. And procrastination is referred to the delay of important tasks and can be the opposite of productivity. And productivity is referred to efficiency and completing tasks in a timely manner. For my methodology, I had 82 participants with no discrimination of age, gender, or ethnicity in my study, and they were recruited by campus-wide email and convenience sampling. For my materials, they included an informed consent, a demographic survey, a self-report for individuals to report if they were early birds or night owls, and the late procrastination scale for student populations. And this was a 20 question survey where participants rated themselves on a scale from 1 to 5, from 1 being extremely uncharacteristic and 5 being extremely characteristic to measure procrastination. And for my descriptive statistics, out of the 82 participants, 70 of them identified as female, 9 identified as male, and 3 identified as other. And that was one of the limitations of my study because there was not enough diversity in gender. For ethnicity, 13 participants identified as African American, 65 as Caucasian, 1 Asian, 1 Hispanic, 1 Native American, and 1 who identified as other. And that was another limitation. For age, out of the 82 participants, 55 of them were between 18 to 29 years old, and 27 of them were between 30 and 67. And early birds and night owls, 38 participants identified as early birds and 44 identified as night owls. And my early birds had a mean procrastination score of 61.2 with a standard deviation of 5.31. And my night owls had a mean score of 62.5 with a standard deviation of 4.43. And analyzing my research question, are night owls or early birds prone to procrastination? My hypothesis was that night owls are more prone to procrastination. And I used a t-test assuming equal variance to compare the procrastination scores of morning people compared to evening people. And my statistical significance was set at p less than 0.05, and my results showed p equals 0.22, showing no statistical significance in procrastination score difference between night owls and early birds. So my hypothesis couldn't be supported, which was a bummer. And when further analysis was conducted, I did a 2-sample t-test assuming equal variance at, again, p less than 0.05. And I used the procrastination scores between Caucasians and all the other races. And my results showed p equals 0.54, indicating no statistical significance between procrastination scores and ethnicity. And then I did it with age, the 18 to 29-year-olds and 30 to 67-year-olds, and my results showed p equals 0.29, indicating no statistical significance in procrastination scores and age. So in my discussion, the results suggest that all participants, regardless of chronotype, are prone to procrastination, in addition to the ethnicity and age. The limitations were the COVID-19 pandemic. It really put a dent in participants and getting people to take my survey. And I didn't have diversity in gender or ethnicity. For future research, a procrastination scale that is made for the working class could expand the knowledge of sleep scheduling and expand the knowledge of morning and night people. Future studies can seek to determine what factors may impact procrastination, such as screen time, family dynamics, or stress. And here are my references. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Brittany. We do have some questions coming in. If you have questions, remember, put them in the chat. I did fail to mention that Brittany is participant number 40. Thank you for the prompts. That's what happens when you go off script. Well, the first one's not a comment, but there was an appreciation for this presentation, made them feel better about their procrastination.
I see that.
Amen to that. Any questions? We have a few more minutes for questions. We have submitted a help desk ticket to help participant number 2 try and get on. There are some technical difficulties, so we're trying to get that student connected. Okay, couple questions. Brittany, if there is no difference between night owls and early birds, what other factors may influence procrastination?
Oh, wow. Just like at the end of my presentation, sleep, screen time, stress, those are things that could do it, I feel like.
Next question. Are there some differences between males and females that you found in this?
No, there were not.
No differences. Okay. We have. The next question is, have you thought about why people procrastinate?
No, I mean, it could be many, many things that people procrastinate. Procrastinate. No, I really haven't. We all do it one way or another, but I wanted to see if it was, I don't know, I associate being productive with waking up early. So that's why I wanted to see if there was a difference.
Okay. And one more question. Are there differences on levels of income and procrastination?
Um, I don't know. I didn't study that last study, but that would be a really good study to conduct. I feel like it
Okay.
would be a factor for sure.
All right. Thank you for your presentation, Brittany, and your questions. Let's move to our Blake Lopez presenting on the topic of stress levels among college students. Again, participant ID number 54. Blake, when you are ready.
Alrighty, hello everybody. My name is Blake Lopez, and today I'll be talking to you about stress levels among college students. To start off with my research question, do college students who work more than 20 hours a week have higher stress levels compared to students who work less than 20 hours per week? The aim of this study was to further research on how to manage stress among the hours an individual works and attends school. Hunsell defined stress in 1936 as a behavioral and biological response that can have a negative effect on emotional, mental, and physical responses. The average full-time student spends at least 2.76 hours per day with their education studies. 80% often feel stress while attending college. 40% work at least 30 hours a week, and 45% of full-time students who work 20 hours or less a week. Participants of this study included 40 college students from LSUA. All participants were volunteers, and the students that participated in the study had to have a full-time or a part-time job. The materials included the informed consent, which was about the procedure, benefits from this research, voluntary participation, and confidentiality. A demographic survey was given and had questions about gender, age, grade level, hours per week they worked, and ethnicity. Another survey given was the perceived stress scale, which was given to measure the participant's stress, and the inventory contained questions about measures. The research design of this procedure was a quasi experiment which studied the difference between students who have higher stress levels depending on the hours they work. The variables included work and stress, and to start off with the steps, after reading the informed consent, the participants were asked to read the directions closely and fill out the demographics and perceived stress scale to the best of their ability. Participants were told about the research and thanked for taking the surveys. I asked for any further questions and told the students they could get back the results at any time. Here I have highlighted the research question and the hypothesis. Each stress level score was assessed between students who worked more than 20 hours a week and 20 hours or less a week. Here is given the t-test that was ran. It was not significant and the hypothesis was rejected. In the descriptive statistics, no participants were excluded from the study. It did include the college levels, the number of hours the participants worked, the age, and stress levels among the employment status. All additional analyses were indicated with a one-tailed t-test equivariance of a p-value less than 0.05. In Table 1 is a graph of percentages of their college level. 5% were freshmen, 20% were sophomores, 37% were juniors, and 38% were seniors. I also provided an additional analysis of a one-tailed t-test ran with an equivariance of a p-value less than 0.05. There are no significant difference between the college level of lower class levels of freshmen and sophomores and higher classmen, juniors, and seniors. The next graph included the hours of each participant what they worked. It was broken down into several categories to help figure out what each person worked. As you can see, there were more people that worked more than 40 hours per week. The next graph shown is each stress level score that was assessed between the students who worked more than 20 hours a week and 20 hours or less a week. When a t-test was ran, it was not significant, and as seen are the results and the hypothesis that was rejected. When calculating the scores, as you can see in the graph, the orange means low stress, green is moderate stress, and the blue is high stress. Another graph shared is the age of the participants that was broken into 4 categories: 18 to 24 years, 25 to 34 years, 35 to 44 years, and 45 years or older. This was for an additional analysis. When a one-tailed t-test was ran with an equal variance of a p-value less than 0.05, the results were not significant, and the students who are 18 to 34 years old and 35 and older. Below in the graph shows the low stress and moderate and high stress. Low stress is in the red, moderate stress is in the orange, and the yellow is high stress. To discuss this research, the results did not support this hypothesis that students who work more than 20 hours a week did not have higher stress levels compared to students who work less than 20 hours a week. There were no significance in any of the data, and to determine the measures of the perceived stress scale, there were levels in the other graphs that showed low, moderate, and high stress levels. That was used in the age groups and the hours the students worked. It was found that the students who were 18 to 24 years old kind of had higher stress levels than others. And below, I have 3 researchers that had a similar study that supported my findings, and they conducted a study to find out whether working students experience different levels of stress compared to non-working students. The results indicated that more than 50% of students who work felt more stressed than non-working students. To further the current study, the research could include whether a student attended college full-time or part-time. The research could also find other sources that causes college students to have stress, and pretty much to find out what makes college students have stress, such as grades, amount of homework, professors, other students, etc.
You have 1 minute.
Any comments or questions?
Any questions for Blake? Thank you, Blake. We have your first question. If you only included participants who have a job, how do you think the stress levels are? Yikes. How do you think the stress levels are for those who do not have jobs, non-working on the LSUA campus?
Well, I couldn't figure out that part, but that could be part of a future research, because I only did the amount of hours in this study to figure out the stress levels. I did not do anybody that did not work.
We have another comment from Dr. Elder that says, it appears that you did have some significant differences, but to more specific hypotheses.
Yeah.
Always interesting to continue to dig down, even though your hypothesis doesn't say that, to be able to dig down a little deeper. Yeah. Another question, do you have any ideas about why younger students report higher stress?
I think younger students who start college kind of feel more stressed. You know, they're getting into learning how to study, you know, work, and do pretty much like a time schedule between work and attending school. So I kind of think that that has a big impact on students who are younger.
Okay, any other questions for Blake? Kaylin, you're next, so I hope you're getting ready. Another question, did you look into how it affects first-generation students? How stress?
No, I didn't. I would like to do that kind of study, try to figure out first-generation students. I think it would help a lot, to determine, different kinds of stress levels between first generation.
Okay, and Dr. Elder suggests looking at the differences at only high stress for significant differences.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Blake. We will ask you to stop sharing your screen, and we will ask Kaylin to go ahead. Presentation topic, perception of mental illness, stigma, and millennials compared to baby boomers. Kaylin is participant ID number 58. Kaylin, it is all you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Scholar Day. I hope you enjoy my presentation on my research of perception of mental illness, stigma, and millennials compared to baby boomers. Here you'll see my abstract. The reason I chose to do this research study is because I myself suffer with bipolar depression. So I know I myself have some self-stigma when it comes to my diagnosis and what others may feel about me and what I feel about myself. My research question was, is there a difference in the internal stigma perceived by baby boomers compared to millennials? My hypothesis was that baby boomers would have a higher level of internal stigma about seeking mental health services than millennials. I believe this because I thought that many baby boomers are not as open to mental health, seeking mental health help. They tend to have this kind of thinking process that they need to bottle it all up and not really tell anyone. Whereas millennials have been very open about mental health. They talk about it a lot on social media. They really have spoken out about it. Approximately 19% of adults in the USA suffer from mental illness. An estimated 25.8% of adults aged 18 to 25, 22.2% of adults aged 26 to 39, and 13.8% of adults aged 50 and up have a mental illness, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. Stigma has been associated with mental illness since the Middle Ages. Overton and Medina state that in the Middle Ages, mental illness was considered an example of the weakness of humankind. People with mental illness were even jailed. A person's perception of the stigma associated with mental illness may affect their willingness to seek treatment. People refer to others as bipolar or psychotic in casual conversations with derogatory meaning. Self-stigma is defined as the negative feelings an individual with mental illness feels towards themselves. This also can deter a person from seeking treatment. According to Overton and Medina, negative connotations and false assumptions connected with mental illness may be as harmful as the disease itself. This speaks volumes for how serious people need to take the stigma surrounding mental illness. This is a problem in our society that really needs to be looked at and fixed. For my study, participants were recruited through Facebook to participate in an online study. Before the participant could start the survey, the participant must read and agree to the informed consent provided. Participants were asked to provide their age, race, and gender. Anyone who did not fit into the millennial 23 to 38 age group or baby boomer 55 to 73 age group were excluded. The self-stigma of seeking psychology help, SSOSH scale, was used for this survey. It is a 5-point Likert scale developed by the Iowa State University Department of Psychology. An example of a question that the SSOSH survey asked participants is, seeking psychological help would make me feel less intelligent. The participant would answer 1 through 5, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. Participants did not have access to their individual results. Here you see a chart of the participants by generations. Millennials are on the left and baby boomers are on the right. 106 individuals responded to the survey. 46 individuals were excluded because they did not fall into the millennial or baby boomer age range. 52% of participants were millennials, and 48% of participants were baby boomers. Here you'll see the mean score by generation and the mean score by gender. Females made up 85% of participants, and males made up 15% of participants. The mean score for millennials is 23.4, and the standard deviation is 9.1. The mean score for baby boomers was 19.6, and the standard deviation was 6.8. A one-tailed t-test determined a statistically significant difference between the generation scores. Some additional analysis I ran was a one-tailed t-test comparing the scores of males and females. You'll see that here on the right. The test determined that there was a statistically significant difference between the scores of males and females. The results found a statistically significant difference in the scores, but the hypothesis was rejected because millennials had a higher self-stigma score than baby boomers. Several factors could affect the stigma felt by millennials. Society often views millennials as weak, so some millennials may feel like seeking mental health services and may prove the societal view correct. Another factor that may have affected the stigma felt by millennials is that millennials are at a time in their life where they are building careers. They may fear that seeking help will be seen as a weakness in the business world. Baby boomers have many more life experiences that may lead to a more open view of seeking help. One major limitation of this study is that all the participants were white. I had one participant that was Pacific Islander, Asian, and it didn't really make a difference. The rest of them were all white. The study was also limited by a small number of participants. Participants were also not asked about their experience with seeking mental health services, which may have also limited the study. For future research, I could suggest maybe including comparing a wider range of ethnic groups or genders within a specific ethnic group. Also, future research should also look at comparing two races and the stigma they feel surrounding mental illness. Researchers could look at how the different cultures of two races could impact their perception of stigma around mental illness and seeking help for mental illness. Including participants' knowledge of mental illness and education level would also be helpful in future research.
1 minute, Kaylin.
And here are my references. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Kaylin? As a warning for other participants, Shama has not been able to get on yet. We are going to move her to session 3. We are going to move Jennifer up. So she is next. She has already agreed. I'm not putting her on the spot. So thank you, Jennifer. Kaylin, first question. Do you think Facebook limited your population in a significant way?
No, I would think the opposite. Because with Facebook, I was able to reach multiple different age groups and genders, not just like if I did my email, it would all be 21 to 23-year-olds because that's who I am friends with. But on Facebook, I have cousins who are 30 plus years old. I have aunts and uncles. I have, grandparents. I have mom's friends. So I had a lot of options there with people who would see my survey and take it.
Another question or comment, would it be interesting to find out why millennials talk about mental health more, but often don't seek that help?
I mean, I think they don't seek the help because they fear that they'll be seen as weak, because a lot of people do say that millennials are the weaker generation that we have. They're I hate to say this, but like I know some people have said that they're like, they whine a lot or they complain a lot. And I mean, that would make them probably feel inferior to the other generations if they seek help. I don't know if that's maybe just a complex that they have, or I don't know, maybe that's not true at all, but I feel like maybe that may have something to do with it.
All right. Any other questions for Kaylin? Oh, the other comment was maybe they don't have the insurance to actually seek those services.
That is very true. Very true. They probably don't.
Another comment was to potentially include and compare the Gen Z generation as well. And then the question is, do you believe that it's also a regional thing on why the result was millennials don't seek help?
With the Gen Z thing, the reason I did not include Gen Z, I'm considered a Gen Z according to my research, and I'm 23 years old. The reason I didn't include Gen Z is most of the Gen Z is underage. I can't really, with this study, I was told that we really shouldn't ask for underage people to participate in the study because there's a whole other thing you have to do to let them be involved. So, I mean, I have other cousins that are younger and they're in the Gen Z, but they're underage, so I couldn't ask them. It could be a regional thing. I mean, I know in Alexandria, I know for me at least, when people learned that I was getting mental health treatment and was seeking help, that they kind of were taboo about it. They were like, I don't know why. I don't think you should talk about that. You need to keep that a secret. That's something you should be ashamed about. You shouldn't talk about your diagnosis, everything like that. When it's a part of me, it's who I am, and you should be able to speak about it.
Right. Okay, thank you, Kaylin. We will ask you to stop sharing your screen so we can allow Jennifer to come on. She needs to turn on her camera as well and begin to share her screen. There she is. If you will share your screen, Jennifer, and we will let you get started. Jennifer, I've got to jump to a different page. Jennifer is on the original schedule for session 3. She has volunteered to come in and for Shama, and she can go in session 3. So Jennifer, participant ID number 74, is presenting with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, who take online classes compared to face-to-face classes. Jennifer, when you are ready.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Scholar Day. My name is Jennifer Johnson, and I would like to give you some information on online and face-to-face college courses. My research question is, do students with ADHD have better grades in online compared to face-to-face classes? ADHD is a mental health condition that can lead to unstable relationships, poor workflow, and low self-esteem. Students with ADHD usually require accommodations because they have a hard time focusing and dealing with hyperactivity and impulsive behavior. Accommodations or changes that remove barriers and provide you with equal access to learning. 52 participants with ADHD who attend college throughout Louisiana have completed this survey via text or email. At the beginning of this survey, they have completed an informed consent saying that they were agreeing to answer the following questions. Following the informed consent was a demographic survey asking the students their gender, race, ethnicity, religion, and college classification. Lastly, students were asked to self-report their 3 most recent online grades and 3 most recent face-to-face grades. The participants were then thanked for their time taking and completing a 7 to 10 minute survey. This study is a quasi-experimental design as it focuses on comparison and online and face-to-face GPA scores. As you can see in the lower corner is a graph that was presented on their actual self-report survey where I had 6 blanks and they were able to fill out online or face-to-face the credit they received in the course and the actual grade. Here again, I present to you my research question and hypothesis. My research question is, do students with ADHD have better online grades compared to face-to-face? And my hypothesis was students with ADHD will do better in online classes compared to face-to-face. A t-test was run to examine whether the GPA of college students with ADHD was higher in online classes compared to face-to-face. When the test was run at p is less than 0.05, a difference was found between the two courses, and my hypothesis was supported. As you can see in Figure 1, the gender of college students was surveyed. Here shows that there was 59% female, 39% male, and 2% preferred not to say. In Figure 2, it shows that there was a large response from the seniors with 42%. The juniors had 21%, sophomores 27%, and freshmen were 10%. Here in Figure 3, you can see that 37 of the participants take medication for ADHD, and 15 students do not take medication. In Figure 4, you can see the graph shows the different ages that students were diagnosed. There are 19 students who were diagnosed between the ages of 5 and 10, 23 students between the ages of 12 and 16, and 11 students between the ages of 7 to 20. Here you can see the online GPA and mean and standard deviation is slightly larger in online compared to face-to-face. The hypothesis was supported, stating that students do better in the online courses in college compared to the face-to-face. In the current study, the difference of online and face-to-face college courses, students with ADHD was examined. The study found that a significant difference in the two GPAs. Knowing that ADHD students perform better in online courses suggested that those students should plan on taking more online courses than face-to-face in their college career. Due to the fact that 20 participants were not diagnosed with ADHD, it decreased my number of participants from 72 to 52. During the time of conducting the survey, it was interrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic, causing our survey to solely be conducted online instead of done face-to-face on college campus. The two factors were considered limitations of my study. If I were to conduct further information regarding this topic, I would choose to further investigate things that go on in the two different types of classes. I would like to compare the differences of assignments, projects, and tests that were given in each class. Thank you again for joining Scholar Day. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. If you have any questions at this time, I would be glad to help you.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. First question is, did you control for upper level courses versus lower level courses?
I did not control that. Because it was a self-reported survey, I let them choose. So I didn't specify higher or lower.
Okay. And your second question, could there be some other cause for their having done better in online classes rather than the fact that they are online classes?
I'm not too sure about that. I think that would go into my future research, and as far as what is actually done specifically in it compared to outside of it.
Okay. Any other questions for Jennifer? It's the timer to say stop presenting. Another question. Did you notice if there was a difference between those who took medication for their ADHD compared to those who did not?
I didn't notice a specific difference, but I didn't spend much time on that topic. I overall just spent the GPA the GPA levels is what I compared more than anything else. That is something I think I would, again, go further into with a future research.
Another question, did the age of the student affect the results?
The age of the students did not.
Okay. Well, with that, we will conclude session 2. Thank you, Jennifer, again for your presentation. Thank you for being willing to jump ahead and present 45 minutes earlier and support one of your other classmates.
Absolutely, I was glad to help.
Teresa, we would ask you to stop the video recording. The next session, you are with.
Way back here.
There we go. In this session, we have 3 students presenting their research from the psychology department. I will introduce each presenter, read the title of their presentation. Presenters, while we are doing that, please share your screen. You have 7 minutes to present with 5 minutes for questions. I'll give you a 1-minute warning. Judges, I'll also be providing you with the participant identification number, which will go on the top of your judging forms. All attendees will be muted throughout the presentation, so when you have questions, please put them in the chat section. Let's go ahead and get started. First, we have Isaiah Ingram presenting his work on generational differences on the perception of tattoos. Isaiah's presentation ID number is 62. And whenever you are ready, Isaiah.
We're good. Hello, welcome. Thank you for attending Scholar Day today. As y'all know, my name is Isaiah Ingram, and today I will be sharing you my study on generational differences on the perception of tattoos. Slide. Now, the reason for this study is specifically because there hasn't been a lot of details in regards to Generation Y and Generation Z. Now, there has been previous studies in regards to generational differences on perception on tattoos, but never has there been a specific focus on Generation Y and Generation Z. Given that matter, I wanted to focus on that and create some sort of a statistic boundary in regards to those specific generations. With that being said, I was able to conduct a research question of, do students from Generation Y have a more negative perception of an individual with tattoos based on likability than students from Generation Z? On top of that, I was able to formulate my hypothesis. Students from Generation Y have a greater negative perception on tattoos based on likability than those from Generation Z. In addition to that, this statement would also not support the null hypothesis. Slide. Now, the methodology. For this particular study, I was able to recruit 60 participants. The participants had to be within the age ranges of Generation Y and Generation Z. For Generation Y, you had to be from the ages of 25 to 39, and for Generation Z, you had to be from the ages of 18 to 24. Now, procedure. Again, participants were asked via face-to-face and or email. And once the participants did agree to participate in the study, the informed consent was then given and must be signed before continuing on to the next demographics. After the demographics was then conducted, then the survey was then given out. Now, the survey was a likability scale on the basis of 2 pictures. As you can see on your screen, there's picture 1, the individual with tattoos, and picture 2, the individual without tattoos. Now, the process was the first picture came up and you were given 14 questions, and it was a Likert scale from the scale of 1 to 7. 1 being strongly disagree and 7 being strongly agree. Now, these questions were then calculated from a different study conducted by Rayson, and the study was then given to them. They were then asked to answer the questions, and then once they submitted it, the data was then given to me, and I was able to calculate the results. Slide.
I'm trying. There we go.
Nice. Now, the results, given the descriptive specifics. As you can see on the table to the right, there's table 1, gender, and table 2, age. For table 1, 73% of the population were considered females and 27% were considered males. For age, that was the basis of Generation Z and Generation Y. Generation Z covered 60% of the population, as Generation Y covered 40%. Slide. Again, as you look at your screen, you see a table on your left, table 3, ethnicity, and table 4, religion. Now, on table 3, you can see that there was a big skew, as 65% of the population were categorized as white, with the next highest being 15% of Black or African American, and 13% being Hispanic or Latino. On the bottom right, you see the table of religion. Now, as you can see, there's another skew there, as 75% of the population were categorized as Christian, and the next highest being agnostic, and the third highest being Islam. Slide. Now, the biggest factor in regard to the descriptive statistics was the frequency chart. The frequency chart was run on both picture 1, individual with tattoos, and picture 2, individual without. Now, the significance of this frequency chart allowed me to see exactly how many scores there were and exactly who was scoring in certain 4 categories, as you can see on the chart. However, the biggest thing that came from this was the mean and the standard deviation that was able to be sought out. For picture 1, for Generation Y, they had a mean of 47.1 and a standard deviation of 14.2. For Generation Z, it was 53 for a mean and 12.1 for standard deviation. For picture 2, Generation Y had 45.4 and with a mean and a standard deviation of 10.5. And for the mean for Generation Z, it was 43.6 with a standard deviation of 13.1. Slide. Now, in regards to the analysis of the research question, perception cannot be guessed or just assumed. As for this particular study, a t-test assuming equal variance was run. For picture 1, male with tattoos, degrees of freedom 58, 1.7 p equals 0.05, that was considered significant. For picture 2, male without tattoos, degrees of freedom 58 equals negative 0.57, p equals 0.29, that was considered not significant. Slide. Now, in regards to the discussion, what does this mean? Well, I can separate that up into 2 parts. In regards to the hypothesis, the results do support it. The t-score was greater than the critical value, equaling significance for picture 1. In addition, if you remember back to the frequency charts, there was significant difference in means between picture 1 and picture 2. For picture 1, the mean was calculated higher for Generation Z than Generation Y, which allowed me to assume that the perception based on likability was more positive in regards to the individual with tattoos than it was negative. And that mean was higher than Generation Y. In regards to picture 2, although there was no significant difference in regards to the mean was calculated as a higher mean than Generation Z, which allowed me to understand that the perception based on likability was more positive in regards to the individual without tattoos. So there was more of a positive reaction or view of an individual without tattoos in regards to Generation Y than there was for an individual with in regards to the individual with the tattoos. Now, part 2. What does all this mean? Well, given the study, particularly right now, this assists statistics that older generations have a higher negative perception findings on tattoos. Now, I don't know the specifics of that, given that the study only focused on perception and likability, but I can assume that there is a higher chance in regards to that people, it's possible that these views stem from just the time of living. As people from 1980 and 1994, those are people that were born from Generation Y, and technically tattoos were technically classified as taboo and were not as popular as it is today.
You have 1 minute.
Now, the final part in regards to discussion contains the limitations in the future research. Limitation of the study, there was a lack of participants, there was a lack of time, and there was a lack of balanced diversity. If you can remember back to the chart in regards to the religion base, the ethnicity, there was a really big skew in regards to the findings, and a more broadened and balanced diversity would have been better for the research. In regards to future research, I would say that incorporating the likability scale by Racine would be very valuable, as it is very easy to score, it's very easy to do, and it's very easy to understand. Again, I would also, given that the fact that this study was only particularly on students, I would say generalizing the participants would be much better, as you would get a more broader result. And finally, searching for the why. Why is it that older generations have a more negative perception on tattoos? As if we were able to answer this question, we would be able to answer a bunch of other underlying questions, so that in the near future we can focus more specifically on certain parts of a study than broadening it out as like just a basic form. So that is my research, that is my study, my presentation. I thank you all for listening, and I will take questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Isaiah. Questions for Isaiah, I'm seeing come in the chat. The first question, how did you measure the positive versus negative perceptions in both groups?
Like, how did I measure it, like, to get the results?
Yes.
Okay,
Your ratings.
So specifically, the Racine likability scale is you basically, after you find all the after the participants answer all the questions, they enter out in a total score. The scale is so easy that literally the higher the score, the more likability there is. So when you take that and you take all the statistics, and then you run it through Excel, and then you go through those statistics and you run the t-test, assuming equal variance on that, then it finds the mean, it finds the degrees of freedom, it finds the critical value, and based upon those statistics, the higher the, I can't remember what it was, but if the certain statistic, if the t-test is higher than the critical value, then it's regarded significant. So there's a significance there in regards to perception and likability based on those scores. And that was ran for both people from Generation Y and for Generation Z. And there was just a bigger difference for Generation Y and Z in regards to the individual with tattoos. So that's why it allowed for me to prove that my hypothesis was accepted.
Okay. Second question. Could you have done more or additional variations for the amount of tattoos that the person had showing on their body?
Yes. I believe when I first started the study, I kind of picked random photos from the internet and was going to cite that. But in regards to looking at that, they looked more like a model, like it was a modeling type photo. So I wanted to bring a photo that was more like an everyday student that you saw on campus. And these individuals that I used for the study, I happen to know because they were my teammates. So, and I didn't want to use myself because I'm an individual who's has a lot of tattoos. So I didn't want to use myself and have there be created bias. So I wanted to use pictures of people that I knew that you would see typically around campus. And it wasn't so like particularly like focused in regards to like modeling. But if I could have gotten an individual who had more tattoos, I would have, but given the time constraints, I wasn't able to find one in time. So.
Okay, so this leads into the next question is why did you choose to do this study?
Well, I'm a big tattoo guy. As you can see, I have tattoos all over my body. I love them. I think they're a form of art. But I do see how in generational changes, given from my culture, my family members who are older than me, certain people, like they just have certain views on certain subjects, and tattoos just happen to be one of them. But when I did research, I always knew that there was kind of a difference in perception in regards to tattoos based on generational differences. But I kind of focused on Generation Y and Generation Z because they're kind of close in age range. If I would have done Generation Z, Generation X, I feel like it would have been like a duh moment. Like, yeah, Generation X is going to have a different perception on Generation Z. But given that Generation Y and Generation Z were so close, I wanted to see if that was still true, and this research allowed me to, at least for this particular study, assume that there is still some sort of a perception difference.
All right. Without seeing any other questions, well, thank you for your presentation. Ask you to put yourself on mute.
Okay.
Back on mute. D number 63. The topic of impact of partner cell phone usage in relationship satisfaction. Again, Tammy Gentry, participant 63. Tammy, whenever you are ready.
Of course. All right. Hello, so my name is Tammy Gentry, and today I'll be talking about the impact of cell phone usage on relationship satisfaction. So the cell phone has become one of the most important pieces of technology that we've owned. It's replaced many of the things that we used to rely on. And while we use it, we never really think about the impact that it can have on the and we start noticing that they're scrolling on their phone. We could confront them, but most likely we just pull out our phone and start doing the same thing. Thus, a cycle of phubbing is born. And phubbing is a combination of the words phone and snubbing. The first people to do research on this topic was James Roberts and Meredith David. They found that high levels of phubbing lead to negative feelings. And so that's why I wanted to expound on their research and see if being in a long-term relationship results in having less relationship satisfaction when there is higher phubbing by their partner. So in order to test this, I put a post on Facebook asking people to participate in the survey. They were asked to take the relationship assessment scale and the phubbing scale. So the relationship satisfaction scale was a 7-question scale that ranged from 1 to 5, with 1 being least satisfied, 5 being most satisfied. And the phubbing scale was 9 questions, and it asked about the frequency of how often phubbing took place in their relationship, with 0 being never and 8 being 10 or more times a day. As we can see, the breakdown from this is 88% of the responses were female and 12% were male. We also had that they were asked to give their length of relationship, with the majority of respondents being in a relationship for at least 5 years. And they were also asked if they were dating, engaged, or married. And we can see that most of the participants were married. So the results for this, a regression test was ran, and it showed that there was not a significant relationship between the length of a relationship and the amount of relationship satisfaction. When a ANOVA was ran, it showed that there was a significant relationship among those that were dating. So this is figure 2, shows that first test. And we can see here that there wasn't a significant amount between any of the length of time we're dating and having lower relationship satisfaction. There was a slight lower result between those dating or together for 1 to 2 years, but it was not significant. And here we see this is when it was broke down by type of relationship, and we can see here that among dating, they had higher phubbing and less relationship satisfaction. So my findings refuted the previous research done by Roberts and David, and my hypothesis was not supported. So there were a few limitations with this research. The first being with the current COVID situation, I had to switch all of my research gathering online. It also only focused on cell phones when there is a wide range of technology that people use constantly. I also believe that whenever I gave them the survey, the relationship satisfaction scale was before the phobbing scale, and I believe that this skewed the data. Also, by putting it on my personal Facebook page, I believe that that also could have led to a bias, because even though it was anonymous, there still may have been the fear that I could identify who it was and it could lead to some judgment. So I would suggest in future research getting a wider range of participants, especially because overall my respondents were married white females. So I think having a more diverse relationship range and comparing gender would give us some better results. Also to focus on different technologies besides cell phones, look at, computers, smartwatches, tablets, all that. Also to measure what is their typical level of communication within their relationship. And also, what is the device being used for? Is it for business or pleasure? I think this would help better understand the topic. All right, and that's it. I'll now take questions.
All right, thank you, Tammy. We have a couple questions in here. Is phone usage in your hypothesis and phubbing considered the same? And then the next question is, was age of the subject a significant variable?
So yes, the phone use and phubbing were the same. So it was how often they were being ignored by their partner in favor of their partner using their cell phone. Age, I did not really test to see if age played a part, but that is definitely something that could be looked into, because I do believe that that probably would impact the results.
Okay, and your next question is, what would you change about your study?
So what I would change is how I gathered the research and try to focus on getting a wider range of responses.
Okay. And then the next question is, do you believe that phone usage could lead to mistrust in the relationship?
I definitely do, because especially no one likes being ignored. So I think when that does happen, your mind starts running wild and you make up your own scenarios about what they're doing on their phone.
Okay. Any other questions for Tammy? Okay, seeing none. Tammy, thank you. Thank you. Mama Saramea, participant 46. The topic, the effect of sleep on stress in college students. Shama, if you will share your screen.
Hello, thank you everyone for being here. My name is Shama Strama, and I'll be doing the effect of sleep on stress in college students. Okay, so the first research question for my study is, does sleep affect perceived stress levels in college students? And does sleepiness impact perceived stress levels in college students? Many college students did not get enough sleep, which affects stress. Many reports show because of lack of sleep, high stress levels are becoming higher. Academic grades are dropping, overall health is being affected, and sleepiness problems throughout the day because of not sleeping enough. Participants. There were 67 participants, all from Louisiana State University. There was also informed consent that participants had to agree on in order to proceed into doing the study. There was also a demographic survey having questions about gender, age, ethnicity, and race. There was also a perceived stress scale from Cohen that had a scale from 0 no chance to 4, high chance, and an Epworth sleepiness scale from 0 to 3 from no chance to high chance also. There was also self-reported sleep, which participants had to record the hours of sleep they have each night. The procedure. The informed consent and demographic survey took about 2 minutes, an additional 3 minutes for the perceived stress scale and Epworth sleepiness scale. Results. The first research question, does sleep affect perceived stress levels in college students? Hypothesis. College students with less amount of sleep have higher perceived stress levels. Research question number 2, does sleepiness impact perceived stress levels in college students? Hypothesis. The sleepier you are during the day, the higher the perceived stress levels are. Okay, so this is my descriptive statistics. For gender, 57 are female and 10 are male. For ethnicity, 49 are Caucasian, 8 African American, 7 Middle Eastern, and 3 Hispanic Latino. For grade level, 30 were seniors, 15 were juniors, and 17 were sophomores, and 5 freshmen. For the number of students age group, 46 were between the ages of 18 and 23, 14 were between the ages of 24 and 29, and 7 were the ages of 30 and above. Descriptive statistics. So this is table 1. It shows the assessments and the mean and standard deviation for each one. For the Epworth sleepiness score, the average was 9.44 and standard deviation 4.17. For the perceived stress scale score, the mean was 28.62 and standard deviation of 4.76. For the self-reported sleep, the mean was 6.58 and a standard deviation of 1.51. Okay, so my study had a correlation test in order to see if there was a significance between the assessments. The first correlation test compared the perceived stress scale and the hours of self-reported sleep. Pearson R, degrees of freedom 65 equals 0.19, and the p-value is more than 0.05. It shows that there was no significance between perceived stress scale score and hours of self-reported sleep. The second correlation test compared the perceived stress scale score and Epworth sleepiness score. Pearson's R, degrees of freedom 65 equals 0.05, and P is greater than 0.05, which shows no significance between perceived stress scale score and Epworth sleepiness scale score. And another correlation test was seen to compare the numbers of self-reported sleep and Epworth sleepiness score. Pearson's R, degrees of freedom 65 equals 0.11, and P is greater than 0.05, which shows no significance between hours of self-reported sleep and Epworth sleepiness scale score. And here is figure 5 comparing the females and males average scores between all assessments. For females average reported sleep, it was 6.6, for males it was 6.3. For the perceived stress scale score, the average for females was 29.1 and for males 25.8. For the Epworth sleepiness scale, the average for females was 9.4 and 9.9 for males. This figure shows that there was no significant differences between females and males scores. Limitations. Students are all from Louisiana State University. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a disruptions where the service had to be taken online, not face-to-face. There was also limitation for gender, age, and diversity. For future research, I'll do the sleep score from electronic devices besides doing a self-reported sleep for more accurate results. And then I'll also have students from different colleges, and I'll also have gender, age, and diversity more of. Here is also the perceived stress scale scale, which shows the questions in the scale. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shama. Any questions following her presentation? We have one coming in. For the judges, as a reminder, Shama's participant ID is number 46. The first question is, what were the high ESS and the PSS scores? And what numbers were considered high?
For the Epworth Sleepiness scale, it was from no chance 0 to high chance 3. So it was a scale between those scores. And for the perceived stress scale, it was from never to 4 very often. So it was a scale between those scores also. The higher it is, the more the stress is, or the sleepiness score is.
The next question, sorry, did you include if the participants had a job as a variable?
No, I did not.
Next question, why did you choose this study and what was your favorite part?
I chose to study because I know that when I don't sleep as good as I need to, I get more stressed out in school. So I wanted to see if other people have the same problems as me.
And then we have another question. It says it looked like females were a little more stressed and a little less sleepy. Do you have any idea why?
No, I have no idea.
Any other questions? We have just a few more minutes. All right, thank you, Shama. Without anything else coming in, we